disappointing this year, so I'm expecting a lot of players to pick it up. DJ, the quarterback, I'm not going to pronounce his last name because every single time I try, it seems like I butcher it. He had 2,246 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Last year, well, the previous season before last year, Trevor Lawrence got hurt. He went in, played versus Boston College and Notre Dame, and looked really impressive. So once Trevor Lawrence went to the NFL, tons of hype was on DJ, and he could have been a potential Heisman candidate entering the season. But that was not the case, as he was super disappointing. Another reason was the receiving corps. Their top receiver was Justin Ross, who played very disappointing last year, as the leading receiver last year only had 514 yards, and the leading in receiving touchdowns, while tied with numerous other players, with 3. He went undrafted, is with the Kansas Chiefs right now. So your top returning wide receiver is Joseph Mangata, who had 438 yards last year and only 1 touchdown. But overall, it seems like the Clemson team has an overall same build. Always seems to be like a big physical player. With this offense, I think it's mainly going to be the rushing attack, as Will Shipley and Kobe Pace are 2 extremely talented players. Both averaged Shipley actually averaged exactly 5 yards per rush, while Kobe Pace averaged 6.2. So I think with another year of experience, both Will Shipley and Kobe Pace will be really developed over the offseason, and I think that's going to be a good thing. Something I have not mentioned yet, Clemson has lost both the offensive and defensive coordinator in Tony Elliott and Brett Venables. Tony Elliott decided to leave to get the Virginia job, while Brent Venables decided to leave for the Oklahoma job, which I think really no one expected to be open. So with that being said, there's going to be a new offense here. And people are saying, oh, that's going to make this offense and defense even worse, going to make Clemson underperform again. I don't think that's going to be the case. Brandon Streeter, he's been with Clemson for a long time. If I'm not mistaken, he's been there since 2015. And then with Wes Goodman, the defensive coordinator, he actually came in around 2012. Even though Elliott and Venables both left for head coaching jobs, both of the coordinators that they've hired have experience with this offense and defense, so I don't even think it's going to be that much of a drop-off. Yes, it may take a few steps to get used to, but overall, I think people are over-exaggerating the loss of Tony Elliott and Brett Venables. Now as we go to the defense, I absolutely love this defense, even though 61% of the defense is only returning. That's even good. You're still over 100. The main players are Miles Murphy, who's the defensive end, Brian Brossi, who's the defensive tackle, another defensive end and graduate senior, Xavier Thomas. He's been there for so long, it seems like. And then one of my favorite parts about this team is the 2-headed monster at linebacker, as you have Jeremiah Trotter Jr., he came off a true freshman year last year. I think he's only going to be improving from this point. And then junior Trenton Simpson, who had an electric season last year, as he was 3rd in the team in tackles. The top 2 other tackle leaders are both gone from Clemson now. So Trenton Simpson is probably going to be the main focus point in that linebacking core. The secondary did take a few stabs, as they did lose both of their top corners in Mario Goodson and Andrew Booth Jr. But overall, I think this secondary is still going to be doing very good, mainly under those 2 safeties. Man, even true freshman Toriano Pride Jr. could be getting some snaps at corner this year if he's truly that good. Before I hop into the predictions for Clemson, I do have to have that big talk about this quarterback situation. DJ, even though I just read off some of his most disappointing stats of the season, Cade Klubnik was a 5-star quarterback true freshman who just committed to Clemson. And people are already saying by like week 4 or 5, he could have that starting spot and take it over from DJ. I'm not a big believer in DJ, but I do think at the end of the day, he will be much improved based off last season. And yes, even though I do think Cade Klubnik will overall have a better Clemson career than DJ will, I think for this season, DJ's quarterback spot is going to be safe. I think it's going to be very hard for Cade Klubnik to become that starting quarterback unless of an injury. But overall, I think DJ will be the starting quarterback throughout the season. And now, let's hop into this Clemson schedule. The first game of the season for Clemson is a technical neutral site game versus Georgia Tech, even though it's in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. I don't understand it. This is that Labor Day game that is always on ESPN. This is going to be the game that tells us about Clemson very out of the get-go. If Clemson does not beat this terrible Georgia Tech team by at least 17, there's going to be some big concerns about this Clemson team. And maybe even under the shadow with the administration over there at Clemson, Dabo, that seat's getting a little hotter if this game is somehow close, or for the love of God, if you lose this game. Next game, you host Furman, as that's your first home game. You should easily beat the Furman Paladins. Next week, you host Louisiana Tech. Same instance, you should beat Louisiana Tech. Now, this is part of the schedule I love. This 4-game stretch at Wake, home versus NC State, at BC, and at FSU. I absolutely love it. The first game at Wake Forest. Usually, this should be an easy win for the Clemson Tigers. But based off the season last year at Wake Forest, this is an actual trap game for the Tigers here. But overall, I think Wake Forest entering this year is very overrated. I'm not a big believer in Sam Hartman, as we will get into that when I talk about my Wake Forest predictions. But overall, I think Clemson does find a way to win this game. This is definitely going to be, I'm going to say a 10-point game. I think this is actually going to be a low-scoring game. Clemson gets to win on the road. Next week, you host NC State. And NC State is one of the most overhyped teams entering this season. Yes, I'm a humongous fan of Devin Leary at quarterback. You have a great linebacking core, but I just don't see NC State truly being a college football playoff dark horse, in my opinion. Yes, they will be good, but they're not going to be as good to go down to Clemson and upset the Clemson Tigers for 2 straight years. Clemson will find a way to win this game. Yes, it will be close, but NC State, I just can't see them going down to Clemson and beating them. Here's the game I'm going to get a lot of hate for. You're going to go up to Massachusetts. I'm praying this is a night game. I have Boston College winning this game over Clemson. I think Phil Jerkovich and Zay Flowers is going to be too much for this Clemson secondary. And now you may be saying, okay, how about that Clemson defensive line? Boston College, yes, I do understand Alec Lindstrom did just tear his ACL, and he's going to be out for the remainder of the season. But overall, this Boston College offensive line is super underrated in my opinion. Every single year, for I don't know how long, Boston College has forever had an underrated offensive line. They always get the job done. If this was in Clemson, of course I would have Clemson winning. But this is a major trap game, as this is your second of your third road games in a 4-game stretch. I think Clemson does lose one of these road games. I don't think it's going to be at Florida State because I think the talent factor is it's definitely leaning towards Clemson's side. That just did spoil my next pick. You will win at Tallahassee. But I'm just a big fan of this Boston College team, and then you may be saying, oh man, Boston College went blank and blank last year. How will they improve? A lot of people don't understand Phil Jerkovich, just starting quarterback at Boston College, was hurt for the majority of the season last year. I think you shouldn't be hating on Boston College that much. Major upset in Chestnut Hill. I've already went over the Florida State game a little bit. I think the talent factor between Clemson and Florida State's a little too much. The coaching is way better at Clemson. They find a way to beat Florida State in Tallahassee. And then before your bye game, you host Syracuse. Yeah, Sean Tucker may be a problem, but Sean Tucker's not going to be leading this Syracuse team to an upset at Clemson. Clemson wins this game. And as you go into the bye, you are 7-1, and then you have the biggest game on your schedule up to this point, probably for the entire schedule, matter of fact. You have to go to South Bend, and you play at Notre Dame. DJ returns there after the main game that emphasized his entire career up to this point. He goes back there, having a chance to prove his point once again. For me personally, this is one of those games where it's a toss-up, and whoever the home team is, I lean towards them. In this instance, Notre Dame is the home team, so I'm going to have Notre Dame beating Clemson in this game. Clemson goes 7-2 up to this point. Of course, this is going to be a close game, but I think Notre Dame's offense is going to somehow find a way at home in the primetime lights. Notre Dame beats Clemson for back-to-back times. And after a big upset, you host Louisville. And Louisville is an underrated team in the ACC. I think a lot of people are saying this now, actually. But Lee Cunningham is a great quarterback. But overall, I don't know if Louisville will be able to stop that two-headed monster of Will Shipley and Kobe Pace. Clemson finds a way. Well, not finds a way. They will beat Louisville. Then, if it's not Notre Dame, the biggest game on your schedule is this game, home versus Miami. Mario Cristobal comes from Miami after you just fired Manny Diaz. I don't even know if Manny got fired, relieved. I don't even know the whole situation. But Mario Cristobal is now under helm there. You got a new staff. Tyler Van Dyke's now the quarterback. This defense should be much improved. But Clemson, just like how the Notre Dame game is, this is a game where I'll definitely lean towards the home team. In this case, Clemson's now the home team. So even though it went against them in the Notre Dame game, it's going to favor them in this instance. I think Clemson beats Miami for, I don't know how many times this is now. But Clemson does beat Miami in this one. And then your final game is hosting South Carolina. As you saw in the Georgia video, I have South Carolina actually beating Georgia, as I'm higher on South Carolina than most people. But Clemson has owned South Carolina in this rivalry. This is another instance where it's in Clemson. Clemson's had that miraculous home streak. I think Clemson finds a way. I keep on saying finds a way. Clemson should handle the Gamecocks in this game with relatively ease. And yes, even though after a disappointing year, Clemson has college football playoff aspirations once again. With this schedule, I think Clemson will go 10-2 in this schedule with an upset loss at Boston College, and then you lose probably your biggest game of the year at Notre Dame. You could easily go 11-1 in this schedule. But personally, I think out of that 4-game stretch of Wake Forest, NC State, Boston College, and Florida State, you will end up losing one of those games. Personally, I think Boston College is the biggest mismatch out of those 4, so that's why I chose them. And then I do think you just lose to Notre Dame because it's at South Bend. So what is your predictions for this Clemson Tigers team heading into this season? Like, share, subscribe, and like always, have a good day. Peace out.